To the multiple item speaker cards. This is an opportunity for individuals who wish to speak on more than one item to sign up and speak for 2 minutes. Do we have any on multiple? I don't see them on here. Can you? Okay, Michael Shulson and Susan Hunter.
Signed up to speak on both 12 and 13. Should I wait for each of those to speak individually on those?
Pardon me? You could hold this time, please? I'm sorry, what was that?
Signed up to speak on both items 12 and 13. Should I speak before those, or?
No, yeah, the way this works is if you sign up to speak on 2 or more items, you speak up front even before they come up, and you have 2 minutes to use however you want to speak on those items that you signed up for.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Shulson with Central City Association. We represent over 400 businesses and nonprofits in LA, and we're strong advocates for more investment in housing and amenities for the residents and workers who call downtown home. We're here today to support the proposed project by Career Lofts, which will replace parking and vacant lots with a mixed-use housing, hotel, and retail development in the Central City West neighborhood. The project's hundreds of new housing units will provide more opportunities for many people to live near where they work. Its 126 hotel rooms will support the city's record tourism levels and the more than 19 million visitors that come to downtown annually. Additionally, the project will add more lodging options near the convention center, which is critical for keeping LA's convention industry internationally competitive and bolstering the local economy and tax base. The project is supported by its neighbors, the 1100 Wilshire HOA, and we encourage you to support this project as well. Thank you. And regarding the Sequa Appeals Ordinance, we first want to thank staff for their work on this ordinance and for incorporating many of the comments heard at City Planning Commission and throughout the review process. We have concerns about sections E and F regarding Sequa segmentation, which was added recently and should be more fully vetted. Instead of including section F in this ordinance, we suggest addressing the issue of Sequa segmentation within the Processes and Procedures Ordinance currently under public review. We agree that improper segmentation should be prohibited, but we are concerned that the current language is unclear as to what qualifies as segmentation and could result in unintended punitive consequences. Addressing segmentation in the Processes and Procedures Ordinance would avoid potential inconsistencies between the two ordinances while allowing the Sequa Appeals Ordinance to continue moving forward in a timely manner. Thank you for your consideration, and we look forward to continuing to work with you guys.
Thank you. Susan Hunter.
So much. Susan Hunter, I'm with the Coalition to Preserve Los Angeles. Firstly, on number 10, the project does not meet the qualifications of being labeled a sustainable communities project. We have deep concerns about that. And again, overall, we're not looking at the true environmental impact of projects that are deemed needed for housing usage, but then they're actually hotel usage. We have too much of a saturation of hotel usage in one area. This is detrimental to that industry as well as our jobs. And we're asking that you please take into consideration determining if we actually need this project or not in Hollywood. My big concern today is number 13. So one of the bigger issues is that you're asking us to appeal and have our Sequa appeal submitted within 15 days after a determination is made, but yet a developer has no sunset clause on the entitlements. So there's no fair rationale between I have 15 days, but a developer can wait 10 years before making a project go through. These need to be more aligned. So I should be able to appeal an environmental all the way up until a bulldozer is on that property knocking down or demolishing a building, because a lot can change in an environment from 3 years or 10 years or 15 years. So if they're selling entitlements to another developer and they're changing the entitlements and re-entitling, am I still going to be able to appeal on the original entitlements? You're also creating a situation where we're forced to file a lawsuit before all administrative options have been heard in regards to concerns on a property, because now you have a 90-day time limit, but yet Sequa appeals can sit around for 2 years. So we don't have consistent timelines. So we're asking that you simply just make things more fair, and that if you're going to give the benefit to the developer to be able to not have to do anything on a project with entitlements for 10 years, we should be able to file a Sequa on that same timeline. Thank you for your time.
Jorge Castaneda. Jorge Castaneda here? Yeah, okay. Mickey Jackson after Jorge Castaneda.
Hi, thank you. Jorge Castaneda with the Coalition to Preserve Los Angeles. Also, item 10 and 13. So there's a concern in the community that there isn't sufficient environmental impact study being done for this potential loss of this historic resource, not to mention the added congestion and displacement that can follow. On item 13, it seems to me, to echo what one of the other speakers mentioned, 15 days is far too insufficient amount of time to address environmental impacts. We're living in a time where we're getting reports from agencies saying that the environment is in a very precarious state, not to mention the cultural resources and all the other things that are involved with being able to allow instead of exclude constituent participation. That's quite troubling, and it sets a pattern that most people can't really get behind. If we're going to come together in partnership with our elected leaders, we expect a little bit of, as community members, a little bit of inclusion, a little bit of respect, and to have our voices heard. Thank you.
Mickey Jackson.
Coalition to Preserve Los Angeles. I am concerned about similar issues in both item 10 and item 13. I adopt the previous objections raised by other speakers on both items. One problem is when we bum rush the public, we work, we do other things. We don't have time to sit and do nothing but put in Sequa reports. And when you cut the time down, you are exemplifying and following a trend that is extremely troubling in our government, which is to exclude the public, to make the public nothing. The public's value is in writing a check and voting if they're voting for whichever politician wants to be voted for. And the public is increasingly being shut out of the whole process. And the environmental laws and the Sequa laws were a door to let the public in. And it seems to me, I mean, I see things to eliminate it all, to do anything. It's like open season on public participation, and that's very, very troubling. And at our local level, it's even more troubling. The Amoeba Records building itself was from 1999, but we recognize cultural importance as well as historic importance in our monuments. And I hope we will consider making Amoeba a monument based on its cultural significance. Hollywood has long been one of the major incubators and sources for music and music culture in this country. And Amoeba is the last outpost where the public comes in, it interacts, they can buy media, they can support and get information, performers perform there. It has tremendous cultural significance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will turn to the consent calendar. Item number 2, we will approve on consent without any objections. Item number 3, we will continue to December 11th, 2018. Item number 4, we will grant the approve the item. There's a speaker card here, item 4. Do you wish to speak, or do you want to waive your time? We're approving it on consent. Okay. So we'll approve the item 4 on consent with no objection. Item number 5, we will continue to November 27th. Item 8, continue to November 27th. Item 10, continue to November 6th. That is the consent calendar. Now we will turn to our action items. Item number 1 is a report from the Director of Planning, Mr. Bertoni. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Weezer, members of the committee, Vince Bertoni, Director of Planning. Just a few things. We're going full steam ahead in our plan to update all of our community plans, all 35 plans by 2024. So on Saturday, October 20th, we were in the Southwest Valley working on our, going out and having a workshop on our concepts plans. So that went forward on Saturday, October 20th. Also on Saturday, October 20th, not in the valley, but towards the other side of the city, we were in the harbor area doing an open house event for our Harbor Gateway, Wilmington, and Harbor City community plan updates. And then on October 22nd, we were back in the valley, in the Southeast Valley, working on doing public outreach and having a community meeting on our North Hollywood, Valley Village, Sherman Oaks plans. And then on Thursday, October 25th, we're in the west side of Los Angeles, hosting our 4th and final kickoff event for those community plan updates. So we're in all over the South Valley, on the west side of Los Angeles, as well as in the harbor over the last few weeks on our community plan update, going out and listening to the communities and getting input in terms of how we can shape those plans for the future. So with that, I conclude my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions? No questions. We will receive and file this item. Item number 6, if we could call that to order, please.
Sure. Item 6, Councilman, this is a motion, Wesson Ryu. It's instructing planning to prepare a historic cultural monument application for the property
Okay.
doesn't have the address on the agenda, but the property is located at 1074 through 1076 South Genesee Avenue in CD10.
Okay, so we are just initiating the motion here. We are inclined to support this. Are there any public speakers on this? There are no public speakers, right? No. Nope, okay. Any public speakers on item 6? It's not coming, there's a glitch on our computer here. No? Okay. So we will move this item, adopt the motion without objection. Thank you. Refer this to staff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Item number 7.
Item 7, Councilman, it's a motion, Wesson Ryu. This is again a historic cultural monument application, instruction to the city planning department. The agenda, or rather the motion, contain a typographical error which needs to be corrected. The correct address is 1080 through 1082 South Genesee rather than 1078 through 1080.
Okay. We have one speaker on this item, Elizabeth Carlin.
The clerk correctly said what I was going to say. We just need the address changed, please.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So we will, that was a representative from Council District 10. On this item, we will adopt the motion and refer it to staff with the correction made by our Chief Legislative Analyst that the correct address is 1080 through 1082 South Genesee. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 9.
Item 9, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Department. It's identifying various affordable housing options for the Warner Center project located in CD3, and this was initiated by a motion by Councilman Blumenfield.
Okay. Welcome. Would you like to speak first, Mr. Bloomfield, or have staff report?
Sure, maybe I'll set this up a little bit.
Okay.
This is about housing affordability. It is one of the most important issues that we face as a city today. The lack of affordable housing makes our city less competitive, less desirable. It creates it exacerbates issues like homelessness and economic decline. The Warner Center 2035 plan, while it's no longer the most current specific plan, it had that title for a while, it is the greenest and most progressive and looked at model for good transit-oriented planning, and I'm very proud of the plan that we put together. It's also one of the most permissive plans in the city, which helps in a big way for our housing needs. And I wanted to lay some of this out, because since its adoption in 2013, the plan has seen thousands of units entitled and many more thousands in the pipeline and under consideration. Currently, there are 2,000 units under construction in the Warner Center. I want to repeat that. There are 2,000 units under construction. In the West Valley, we are doing our share to meet the housing needs. However, much more needs to be done and can be done. But the biggest problem we've seen is that out of those 2,000 units, not a single one of them is affordable. There are no affordable housing units in the pipeline right now. As the preeminent regional center in the San Fernando Valley, the Warner Center needs a diverse population to thrive. We already employ a diverse number of Angelenos, from service workers to machinists to office workers to CEOs. They all need housing, but a lot of them do not have the opportunity to live in the area where the Warner Center is. And this, as we know, exacerbates other issues like traffic, because we've got to create the long commutes for more affordable neighborhoods and cities. And for the Warner Center to be truly transit and pedestrian oriented, as is the set out goal, and to thrive in an economically diverse area, we need an economically diverse population. We need to rectify this issue and find ways to increase affordability options in the Warner Center. When the Warner Center plan passed in 2013, I was in my first couple of months in office, and I got to take that plan over the finish line. Affordable housing was not as much in most of our vocabularies then. We were talking about how do we improve this plan, how do we do the final tweaks on it, and really we focused on the clean and green aspects, and we made it LEED silver, and we did some great things to it to get this plan over the finish line. But as we've seen in the intervening years, we've had this homeless crisis occur or get much worse, and we've seen the affordability of housing become a crisis. So this demands our attention. I look forward to working with planning in the coming months on this amendment and request that they work closely with the communities, the business owners, our neighborhood councils in the area to further help change this needed policy. I know it's going to take a little bit of work for us to get affordable housing and inclusionary housing specifically into this, but I think it is work that is important. And it's also important that we do it quickly and thoughtfully. And I say quickly because there's a lot of things happening, and if we don't get on this train soon enough, we're going to miss out on the opportunities for affordable housing, and the train will pass us by. And I say thoughtfully because the plan is always a balance, and we need to maintain a proper balance to continue to have this be the plan that incentivizes the development that's happening in a good way. We want that to be incentivized, but we want to make sure that we get the affordable housing. You have a number of options, and I should just say, and I'm looking forward to the staff report about it, I'm very keen on the first option, which is the inclusionary. I have a little, some concerns about the tier-based incentives in terms of what that could mean. Same thing with the community benefits. We already have a lot of community benefits. I'm not sure what we would add. I'm not close to those ideas, but I think the real answer is inclusionary housing. That's where I would like to see the most focus. And then in the in lieu fee, we can talk about that, how that could work or could play along with the inclusionary. But the other piece to this, and then I'll stop talking on it, is when we were considering the Warner Center plan, we weren't allowed to do inclusionary housing. So even if somebody had the foresight to think about it, one of the reasons we didn't think about it is because it was prohibited under state law. Well, that prohibition has been lifted in the intervening years. So now we have the opportunity to right a wrong, to fix this and make the plan better, and take advantage of the fact that prohibition has been lifted. So with that, I will turn it over to the staff. Sorry if I stole some of your thunder about what it's about, but you can give us the real details on how this would work.
Thank you, Councilman, and hello, Honorable Councilman. My name's Tom Glick. I'm joined by Blake Lamb, Principal, City Planner in the Valley, and Delia Esmeralda Arriaga, She is the project manager. She will be working on this and working with the community. But as the councilman said, which was my first two paragraphs, but I appreciate it. What I wanted to augment on this was, in the interim, linkage fee has been adopted. So linkage fee will now, which now applies to Warner Center projects that have not been exempted under the linkage fee. So projects in the future will be subject, in Warner Center will be subject to the linkage fee, but that's also part of the issue. Linkage fee is a citywide linkage fee, and I think what the councilman in his motion was trying to achieve beyond linkage fee, and he can correct me, but we've talked about this, was to create that mixed income or that middle that is missing in Warner Center, to achieve mixed income developments. And there are opportunities in the future with future developments coming, and I think, there's Warner Center, when it was adopted, had an estimate of 20,000 units to be adopted over the life of the plan, which was 2035. And that plan, I think we all understood, was going towards that trajectory under market conditions. Probably would have achieved 20,000 units before 2035. Linkage fee came in and I think changed that trajectory. What we're trying to outline in this memo and what we want to go out with to the community is also get their ideas, because part of our recommendation at the end here is that these are just ideas, these are just options. But we want to go out to the community and hear what they have to say about this. But beyond that, what we are trying to do is try to capture some of that market back, because I think if we can go between linkage fee and what the market conditions were with this, I think everybody would be well served by what we propose. So we've outlined in our report the four options, one which was a straight inclusionary, which was not available at the time the Warner Center plan was adopted, and then a base inclusionary housing requirement with incentives provided, which would bring this base down to a lower base, and then or a higher base, and then a base inclusionary house requirement with public benefits provided, which bring the base lower, and then a tailored linkage fee for Warner Center. All of these would be in lieu of linkage, either in lieu of linkage or a reduced linkage fee. It's all up in the air, but at the end, our report literally was recommending, and I think that's really what we were asked to do, was to recommend a focus study and an outreach program where we will go out to the community with focused outreach and get the public's pulse on what they want to see. We also recommend that part of this, since Warner Center was a market-based plan, since it had an economic study, whatever we propose here would also need a nexus study and some kind of economic analysis, just so we're making sure that the fundamental components of the plan are going to continue to work the way they were initially foreseen to work under the plan in 2013. With that, I will leave open to questions.
Mr. Blumenfield?
Great. Well, thank you. And I do have a couple questions, but first, I'm not going to correct anything you said because, like you suggested, but rather I want to underscore exactly what you said, which is this is about the mixed use. This is about trying to get at a variety of level of income, the lowest and finding that missing middle that we're really struggling with, that here presents that opportunity. So a couple of questions. You mentioned the nexus study. Can the nexus study for the affordable housing linkage fee be utilized to and amended to help expedite the analysis of the inclusionary housing in Warner Center?
This is Blake Lamb. We can look into whether or not we can utilize that existing nexus study, but we have funding available through the budget to do some additional economic analysis. So we could try and piggyback on the existing, or if not, we could conduct a new economic analysis for the different concepts that we've outlined.
Because again, underscoring again that the timing is critical to get this done. And speaking of that, how fast do you think we could get this code amendment done if we were to line up all our ducks?
With the assumption that we have linkage fee there right now as a kind of a safety net. I can't put a time frame on it because we're talking about public outreach, and we all know when we have to go out to the public, there are time sensitive. While there are time sensitive things, public outreach is not necessarily something you can do quickly. I mean, I think there are, you and I know just as well who the constituency we have in the West Valley, who would be interested in what we would be doing with the Warner Center plan. And I think Warner Center, when we did the original plan, took 7 years, over 100 CAC meetings. I don't necessarily think it's if we're going to go out for public for this, I don't think it's necessarily something that can be done quickly. But we can try to do the public outreach as quickly as possible.
I agree, and you are
I can't put a time frame on it.
You are the guru of all things Warner Center. I want to give you the guru credit because
Okay,
you really
I
helped
appreciate
get
that.
it through. But of course, this isn't the whole plan. We don't need another 100 meetings. We want the expectations to be clear that we want to have public input and thoughtful input, but this needs to happen quickly, and the expectations need to be such that it's not the same thing as the CAC. It is a very narrow piece to it. So I just put that out there. You don't have to.
And I totally agree with you. And I'm going to underscore what I suggested too, which was, again, the market was doing its thing in Warner Center. Linkage fee came in, and I mean, I think I'm not part of the project planning world anymore. Blake is. She might be able to say how many filings we've had since linkage fee came in Warner Center, but I think it's 0. We've had 0 filings, but before that we had, as you suggested, 2,000 units that are under construction now. So I think it's probably safe with empirical evidence to say that that linkage fee has probably put some stops to development in Warner Center. But regardless, what we're trying to suggest here is that we capture back something towards the market trajectory. And I think what we're proposing here will take us back. So I do agree that it might be faster to go out to the public if we are coming in with something that's trying to approach back to what Warner Center envisioned.
Great. The incentive part, what type of incentives could be offered to encourage the building of affordable housing in the Warner Center? It seems hard to think about that because the plan was so permissive to begin with that there's not a lot left on the table.
Yes, I think it's a market-based plan. Permissive is a term that's been used, but I do think there are provisions of the plan, and we have gone out for preliminary discussions with some housing developers in Warner Center who have some frustrations with certain parts of the plan that they would like to see changed. Trip fees could be looked at. Public accessible open space, the amount we require for open space, the amount of landscaping we require, parking. FAR, I agree. We've given a lot of FAR. We've given height. But there are central provisions of the plan. Remember, the plan, while I'm the guru of the plan, the plan was prepared by a lot of people in the community. And it wasn't prepared lightly. There are a lot of public benefits within that plan that the community would like to see included, including a very robust TIMP, or Transportation Improvement Management Plan. There are provisions in there, public benefits, that could be either incentivized to do more or reduced to do less. But either way, the 4 options that we're proposing all have a base in there. You won't get away from doing some kind of affordable in your future development. You will have to put that in the mixed income. If you want to get more incentives under the plan, then you would provide more. If you want to bring your base down, then you would do that too. But in reality, we are suggesting that the plan put in basic affordables within developments, affordable requirements. And I think that's the heart of this. Now, the reason we're asking for the nexus study is and the economic analysis is we want to see what's the right mix.
Right. I just worry on the incentives that it's a very delicate balancing act because we don't want to lose some of the critical things that got people to the table with the Warner Center plan when it comes to traffic mitigation and those kinds of things. Those are important. Or open space. Open space is a very important issue. So that's why that one, just to put it out there, gives me a lot of pause. Not everything's on the table, but that gives me a lot of pause, as does the community benefits. Wanted to see what kinds of things were you envisioning as possible community benefits that could be done in lieu of? Because I'm
More bundled parking is one.
more what?
More bundled parking. A developer could provide more parking within their development that could be available to other developments. Hold on for a sec. I had the list. I apologize. Delia?
Some of what we were thinking was some of the cultural amenities fees. We were thinking about other possibilities for like the open space. I know that that's important in Warner Center to make it more transit-oriented. So there were other like community benefits that we're thinking. So in that case, the needle would start high for affordable housing, and the developer could then decrease that needle with community benefits put in place. And again, we're thinking of a base, so it could be anything that the community identifies as something that's valuable in lieu of the housing.
Yeah. I hear that on the table, but
There's another fundamental that this, when you talk about public benefits and incentives, it's the same coin, but just different sides of it. But one thing I do know developers are frustrated with under this plan, and it is the one central provision of the plan that I think we all agree, people who developed the plan would agree that it is probably the central provision, is the graduated FAR table. The table that requires developers to set aside a certain percentage of their project for commercial purposes, and thus they can't build a complete residential development. They have to set aside a portion under that graduated table. The problem, and it's not a problem, but from the developer's point of view, I think that's probably where we should be looking at providing the incentive and/or the benefit and/or the public benefit, which is to allow a developer, if they provide a more affordable, to maybe be relaxed from how much commercial they have to set aside. That could be that, or the public benefit could be if you want to get out of affordable or you want to do less affordable, based on what we're suggesting, then you build more commercial in your phase one. That to me, that I think that is really the only thing in this plan that I believe developers and the community are really solidified against. Some developers, when we deal with them, they're very concerned about the commercial set aside, and then the community is concerned that they'll never see commercial built.
Right.
So I think maybe that's the answer to our initial incentive benefit coin, that we look at that as our way of approaching this. I'm going to leave that up to you. It was just a thought.
And this is Blake Lamb. I think what we hope to get out from today is some direction on permitting us to go out and really do some studies to really investigate and explore all of these different concepts through some economic analysis.
And that's definitely got a series of direction, and that's definitely all part of it that we're hoping to unleash you guys into the world to do, and I appreciate that. One other not random, but the in lieu payment option, is that a requirement in lieu? Do you need to have an in lieu option?
No, we don't need to have one.
This is Blake Lamb. I think that we would appreciate the opportunity to explore the in lieu option as part of our study. So not a requirement, but I do think it is something that we really would like to explore. Maybe it's a partial waiver or an in lieu, but we think leaving it open is something that, so that we can really understand the issue better.
I can see it having a role, but I just didn't know if there was an actual legal requirement or something that there had to be. So it doesn't, in theory, we could do option one, have no in lieu. For flexibility
that's correct.
And for making it all balance out, we may want to have some in lieu, some portion of, but it's not a requirement.
It is not a requirement.
It's not, and Councilman, this is Tom Glick, I want to apologize. Your motion, when it was introduced in May, asked us to work with Housing and Community, HCID, LA, Housing Community Development Department, I'm sorry about We have them here. They worked with us very closely on what we recommended, and they are also here. When you asked the in lieu question, she
Yeah, no, please.
yeah,
please.
she kind of made a noise.
Happy
so
to
I
hear
assume
from
that. Do you want to?
From H. Go ahead. With the chair's indulgence, thank you.
Good afternoon, Claudia Monterrosa with the Housing and Community Investment Department. And to answer your question, Council Member, there is a requirement for an in lieu fee option for all inclusionary zoning policies, and it could be a variety of things that you do need to have some sort of economic feasibility study for that. Statewide, what is allowed is to do up to a 15% of set aside for inclusionary zoning without triggering a nexus study. After that, you do have to provide some options to developers, and that can come in the form of an in lieu fee or to basically do units outside of the project itself, but it would have to be within a certain radius or within the specific plan. So that's an option that could actually be considered for inclusionary zoning kind of policies.
So the in lieu payment could be, lockboxed into the Warner Center.
That's correct. The in lieu fee would have to be for the Warner Center specific plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And
for this situation. Now, when we are considering a citywide inclusionary zoning, that's
story.
another.
And in many ways, this could be the pilot for the city. It makes sense in some regards because this is a permissive plan. That this could have implications for the city down the road. But what we're talking about now is only on the specific plan. And just to clarify, so you said it is a requirement. Is that state law? What is
so it's not that it's state law, but it is all of the inclusionary zoning policies that exist in the state of California have an option for an in lieu fee or to do outside units outside of the building, but still do them within a radius. So you need to be able to provide some options. Ideally, what inclusionary is trying to achieve is to have the units placed and built on the project, right? And that's the way to.
Absolutely, no,
yeah.
that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Get them on site in the Warner Center. We want to have a variety of housing levels in the Warner Center. That's the bottom line. That's what this is all about.
Correct. And I also wanted to just kind of go back a little bit in terms of the citywide affordable housing linkage fee. So that is not in lieu, it should not be in lieu of not doing an inclusionary zoning unit because the amount will never equal to that. So the in lieu fee option will be the closest thing to incentivize the creation of the affordable housing units on site.
Right. The in lieu has to be obviously higher.
Right. So what we are going to be doing is looking at the balance issue. When is the affordable housing linkage fee applicable? That conforms to the citywide ordinance, and when it's not within the Warner Center, for example. We will be coming up with another. We're working with Council District 1 as well for the Central City Specific West Plan, and there is already an in lieu fee option there. So that is actually moving forward kind of concurrently. So there is that as an example that we can also look at as we go into the Warner Center. So I think the one thing that where HSID believes that we could expend funds and time is to do the feasibility study for what the in lieu fee would be. Right now, you can basically enact an inclusionary zoning with very little extra work. And we do have a lot of the studies that were done for the citywide affordable housing linkage fee and also for the TOC program. We actually conducted a feasibility study that set the fee for the TOC for the in lieu fee. And that's actually part of the TOC.
Could you de-link them and run the inclusionary on a fast track, get that done, and then figure out the in lieu fee on a slower track? And I only say that because I'm as eager to get something done because I fear there's going to be a lot of missed opportunity if we don't act quickly on affordable housing.
And that's I think that's an option that we're happy to to continue to work with the planning department to see how we can expedite that, since we are also, just from an affordability crisis perspective, eager to also gather and get as many affordable housing units in place in the Warner Center, since we do have so many online and potentially a big growth area for that specific plan.
And then just the last question for H. I didn't quite understand the answer about where the requirement comes from. You said it's from the zoning, all the different local zoning codes that require the...
No, this is based on the review of different inclusionary zoning policies throughout the state of California. All of them have it in LUFI, and we can come back with a more definite answer. But every inclusionary zoning policy has had an in LUFI option. So we would have to look at what the state code is. But really what happened with the Palmer fix, it was an administrative fix that allowed for the misinterpretation of the court ruling that prevented, for instance, in the city of LA to continue implementing its inclusionary zoning law for the Central City Specific West Plan. So now all localities can actually continue and move forward or create their own inclusionary zoning policies.
Okay, well, it's an interesting, it may end up being an academic point, I don't know, but it's interesting if it is that way because that's the way it's been and that's the way it is, but it's not necessarily the way it legally has to be.
So we can do more research on that to give you a for sure answer.
Okay, great.
And this is Tom Glick again. I'm just going to add our option 4 is a tailored linkage fee for Warner Center that would be spent only in Warner Center. Because we understand, I know you and I, we've talked about this, the history of the funds in Warner Center and how they've been spent. And as we talked with HCID LA about this, I think we all agree the best way to achieve this is to have the cut out the middleman and have the developer put the affordable housing units. And I think that's ultimately what we're trying to suggest, or not suggest, but we're trying to look into in the future, is to try to get in some way the developer to do it.
You guys have it. I mean, everything you're saying, you're exactly on target of what the goal is, and then this process will help us figure out how to get there. So I'm really appreciative of the work you've already done and the work that you're proposing ahead. So with that, Mr. Chair, I know we had some public comment, and then I had some direction for the team at the end.
Okay. We'll go through public comment now. Item number 9, Brad Rosenheim, Matt Majeski, Dan McDonald.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Brad Rosenheim. I'm here on behalf of the Warner Center Association. We're very happy to engage in further conversation on this question. But one option that wasn't considered is, in light of the recently implemented but untested affordable housing linkage fee, which provides funding or on-site affordable housing, why don't we see how that actually works before we go and start messing around with a community and possibly kill the goose that has the potential to lay the golden egg. So I'd ask that this be deferred and/or that there be an option number 5 to be considered as part of this analysis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matt Majeski. I work for California Home Builders. We're a local LA-based business. We've been in Canoga Park, LA for 25 years. I believe we're the most active builder right now in the Warner Center. We have currently a little over 500 units under construction, and we've got close to another 600 that are in the process of being entitled. I can say with 100% certainty that all of the units that we are currently intending to build would not be built if there were an inclusionary zoning requirement. That's not because we don't want to build inclusionary zoning units, it's because the economics simply don't work. We have huge concerns with what's being proposed because we know from our own experience that these units are not going to be built, and if the market rate units aren't built, that means the inclusionary units aren't going to be built. So I'd like to basically leave you with that. We have serious concerns about what's being proposed, and we'd like you to consider other options. The current options at the table are really one option, inclusionary zoning.
Thank you.
One or
Great, thank you.
3 or 4 different options, but they're all essentially one form of inclusionary zoning.
Thank you very much. Dan McDonald, Christine Rangel, Violet Coker.
Good afternoon, Dan McDonald. I represent the 50,000 members of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters. And Councilman Bloomfield, I'd like to commend you on considering including affordable housing in the Warner plan, because the carpenters who have done the concrete formwork, the wood framing, and the drywall on the 2,000 units that have already been constructed, in vast majority, are 1099. They're being paid cash, and they're living 2 families to a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment in Van Nuys or Arleta or Huntington Park or South LA. And it is our position, and we believe that any community benefits program ought to include a workforce agreement which requires apprenticeship training, which requires local hire, and requires that women have an entry into the trades and into a construction workforce. It's something that we would ask to be considered in any community benefits program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Christine Rangel, BIA. Over the last 2 years, the building industry has seen exponentially increased park fees, a linkage fee, and measured JJJ. All of these have added cost, which means that a number of projects have been financially infeasible, which means that the city has missed out on adding affordable housing. And yet, there's not been a single ordinance aimed at making it easier or less costly to build. This proposal is no different. It already assumes that below-market units can be provided before the study is done. I'm here to tell you today that the market at Warner Center cannot absorb this. Prior to the linkage fee, places like Warner Center had naturally occurring workforce housing. You can't just add $30,000 to the cost of a home and expect that working class people in the valley will still buy that home or rent that home. Look at the city's application numbers put out in the city's own report. The numbers are right here. They've plummeted after JJJ and the linkage fee. Is adding another cost to housing production really going to produce affordable housing? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members and staff. My name is Violet Coker, Public Affairs Representative for the Carpenters Contractors Cooperation Committee. We support affordable housing provisions in the Warner Center specific plan and are appreciative of this policy effort. The Quad C is committed to quality development by holding law-violating contractors responsible for wage theft and promoting good construction jobs. Unfortunately, we regularly find construction workers are exploited and become victims of wage theft, even on affordable housing projects. Obviously, this exacerbates the affordable housing crisis even further. Yes, more housing units are necessary to fix the affordable housing crisis, but wages are an equally important solution. We believe good-paying construction jobs are an excellent community benefit to be considered in this affordable housing policy. In the discussion on Concept 3 community benefits, we like to highlight the importance of workforce agreements and specific hiring requirements as a menu option. The Warner Center is going to create thousands and thousands of construction jobs. We hope they're good for the economy and not exploiting workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment. Mr. Bloomfield?
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask that we direct planning in coordination with HCID and LADOT to draft and present an ordinance mandating an affordable housing component within the Warner Center 2035 plan that will create mixed income housing opportunities. I further ask that we direct planning in coordination with HCID and LADOT to, 1, commence outreach to stakeholders and work with local neighborhood councils to help further shape this legislation. 2, to update any necessary market analysis or nexus studies, as was mentioned. 3, to determine any incentives for affordable housing above and beyond a mandated level equal to what is required under the affordable housing linkage fee, however, with a mixed units by affordable levels. And 4, to an exemption to the linkage fee for projects in the Warner Center. And 5, if an in lieu option is determined to be desirable, then a mechanism to ensure that those funds do remain within the Warner Center. And with that, I would ask for your aye vote to direct them to move in that direction.
Okay, we'll move your motion. Any objections? Seeing no objections, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 11.
Item 11, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Commission. It's a resolution, a general plan amendment, a vesting zone change. It's for 99 small lot homes in CD6, which include very low-income units.
Okay, before we begin, is there any public comment on this item? Not on there. Did anybody sign up for item 11? Okay. Okay. Staff from CD6 here? Staff from CD6 is not here? Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Go right ahead. Staff.
Okay. Good afternoon, council members. Before you today is a request for a general plan amendment to the Sun Valley Latuna Canyon Community Plan land use designation from low residential to low medium 2 residential on a portion of the project site and a concurrent zone change from R1-1 Kugu to TQRD 1.5-1 Kugu to develop 99 small lot single-family homes. On July 26, 2018, the Commission approved a density bonus increase to achieve a 64-unit multifamily residential apartment building with 5 very low-income units, a site plan review, and adopted conditions of approval. Today, the Planning Department is requesting your approval on the following items. One is the modified T conditions to correct a typographical error. Second is modified Q condition number 2 to clarify the condition. And 3 is to correct a technical error based on lot area and density calculation. Modified Q condition number 2 to change the affordable set aside from 7% or 4 units to 10% or 5 units, and the percentage of density bonus from 25%, 13 units, to 32.5%, which is 17 units, to achieve the total 64 units on the multifamily residential apartment building. No other modifications are requested from the Commission action taken at its July 26th meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. CD6?
Good afternoon, council members. Ackley Padilla here from CD6 in support of the project. Thank you guys for considering the CBC action here and the corrections submitted by the planning staff. Thank you guys for the work, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. So on this item number 11, we will move the item and prove it. Is that correct, Mr. Mejia?
Yes, along with the modifications, the technical modifications made by staff.
We'll incorporate the modifications made by staff. Any objections? Seeing no objections, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 12, I was told that CD1 and the applicant wish to continue this item for a week.
Alan Apshes on behalf of the applicant, Career Lofts LLC. That's correct.
Okay, so we will continue item number 12 for 1 week. Any objections? Seeing no objections, so ordered. Item number 13.
Item 13, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Commission. It's a proposed ordinance relative to the environmental clearance process and the appeal period to file for underlying decisions before it goes to council. And staff is present.
Welcome. Staff.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Tom Rothman from the Planning Department. I'm here to present an ordinance, a citywide ordinance. On October 30th of this year, the City Planning Commission approved an ordinance to codify a process for appealing Sequa clearances. The ordinance codifies state law requiring that Sequa determinations be appealable to the City Council, whether the Council had reviewed that land use entitlement or not. Currently, this is the practice, but the code is silent on this matter. Additionally, the ordinance would require that any project having its Sequa clearance appealed must be stayed until the City Council acts, or up to 75 days. The ordinance will also permit hearings required for the adoption of a new type of Sequa clearance referred to as a SKIA, a Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, to be held by the City Planning Commission. State law requires currently that only the City Council approve with a public hearing a SKIA clearance, but does allow other legislative bodies, such as a commission, to conduct the hearing instead, if it's allowed by a local ordinance. Since the Commission's action in August, the Department had continued to refine the ordinance for better alignment with state law and had recommended 2 additional changes to address piecemealing of projects in a variety of ways. And I know that there had been some speakers who had taken issue with some of the sections regarding that additional provision. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. We will go to public comment, and then we'll open it up for discussions. Doug Karstens, Jim Arnone, B. Bell, and Bill Delbeck.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Karstens. I'm an attorney with Chatton Brown and Karstens. And on this item, I just wanted to reiterate and support the comments that were made earlier about the shortness of the appeal period not being sufficient. Just a short wanting to lodge my objections. And I think it would make sense to revise it and maybe adopt it later, but not as it is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim Arnone.
Good afternoon, Jim Arnone of Latham & Watkins. I'm not here representing any client today, but I'm here on behalf of my partners at Latham who had some concerns about the draft as it was written. Our concerns are about Section E and F that go to processes, and we think that it would be better for this process to be handled through the Process and Procedures Ordinance process, and not through this. We're a bit concerned because it's newer language that we haven't had a chance fully to vet. Some of the provisions could be read as having unintended consequences about potentially putting into doubt the finality of some Sequa determinations after the time to challenge has passed, and could also be read as creating additional city legal requirements that could potentially conflict with Sequa case law. So to be able to make sure that those unintended consequences don't occur, we would request that E and F be pulled from this ordinance and that the rest proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. There's somebody named B. Bill, and then Bill Delbeck. I think, I suspect you screwed up on the first one and just gave up and then put your real name.
Council members, I just want you to know that you should not ask a senior citizen to have to type in his name at the back of the kiosk. That first speaker was unfortunately mine. Bill Delbeck of Armbruster, Goldsmith, and Delbeck. We're very supportive of the plan to have an appeal process. I shared Jim Arnone's and others' concerns about the sections E and F, and the fact that while those are all intended to be something that operationalizes Sequa, we think it could benefit from some clarification. I also, though, the whole point of this ordinance started with being able to ensure that the approval of SKIAs could be delegated to the Planning Commission. The staff report, I don't think says it can't, but nothing in the ordinance says SKIAs shall be or may be delegated to Planning Commission. I believe that's what the overall effect of the ordinance is, because the state law says if there's an ordinance that allows appeal, it can be delegated. But I just think it would benefit from a little more clarity. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Staff, can you respond to the issues raised by the speakers on E and F, in particular to unintended consequences and the need for more clarification?
Yes, Tom Rothman. I think there was a lot of valid points. We did add these provisions, E and F, later on in the process, so we are more than happy to remove them now and let them travel on a separate path, while the core goals of this ordinance, which was to codify this new process and this new entitlement and the new Sequa clearance, can move forward. So if E and F is problematic, we are happy to have those sections removed while we work on them and fine-tune them with a separate ordinance.
So you'd rather
And let the remainder of the ordinance, without E and F, travel by itself, because that is the core part of the,
Okay.
of the goal.
You're looking at me like you're going to say something. No? Okay.
Just wanted to add, this is Kevin Keller, City Planning. E&F is also included in our forthcoming process and procedures ordinance, which will be coming to this
Okay.
committee in about a month or 2 or 3. So
Yeah.
we're happy to work on that language and give people opportunities to fine tune that in that process as well.
Okay, so let's do this. Any discussions on this, Mr. Blumenfield?
Question, the time period for appeals, is it comparable to other entitlement appeals?
Yeah, yes, it is. And the time, I know that I had heard earlier when there were stakeholders speaking on multiple items had expressed concern about the 15 days being too short, but I do want to make clear that that 15 days is after all of the other appeals and other land use approvals or whatever have been exhausted. So the 15 days is after everything has been determined through the land use, the regular appeals, and then they have 15 days to appeal the Sequa clearance, and the city council has to act within 75 days of that, which is consistent with most of our other processes.
I think that's important to know, and I appreciate that. And I had a question, and I think one of the speakers earlier, I think in the multiple comment, kind of raises, if a Sequa document is not appealed, but an entitlement document is, can the Sequa document be appealed after the original appeal has been acted on?
Yes.
So the ZA decision's appealed, but the mitigated negative declaration is not. The appeal of the ZA decision is adjudicated at the Planning Commission and denied. Is it possible for Sequa to then be appealed, even if the APC decision was final?
Yes, but it can't be appealed until after those original appeals have been decided upon.
Right,
So-
but they don't lose that option.
No, not at all. It's just codifying it. Right now, the zoning code is silent on Sequa virtually. So this is really providing a platform to have, a meaningful discussion on when they can appeal Sequa and when they cannot.
I think that's important and makes sense to me. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. So let's do this. Let's hold E and F, and we'll move the remainder of the ordinance forward and get those clarifications. Even if it's coming up in the additional platform, we should, the issues raised today, see if we could clarify those as well. Any
So,
objections?
Councilman,
Yes, sir.
you may wish to request the city attorney to prepare the final ordinance and remove E and F.
Okay. Well, that'll be the motion as stated by Mr. Mejia.
Thank you.
Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Next item.
That concludes the agenda.
Thank you, and congratulations to you, Mr. Mejia. Cal beat number 15 Washington this weekend.
That's
Big
right.
upset. You
Go
must
Bears.
be happy. Go Bears. You must be very happy, sir. Thank you. That concludes this meeting.